Okay, so I managed to get the CCM out of the car eventually, damaging some panels, but we'll see what it goes back together like. I've taken the plastic case off it, that just clips off on 6 sides. Inside the case there is something in there, possibly liquid, I'm not quite sure if it's from manufacture or if it was just dead. Something's got in it. On the back of the board itself you see the white staining. There is a little bit of it, but it doesn't seem to be over any circuits other than the antenna, which is obviously working okay. The connectors all look fine, there's no corrosion on there. The wires in the car all look okay, there's no corrosion on those, and it seems to fit. This side of the board looks okay as well. I'm just going to clean off the evidence on this side that we can see, and I'm going to just go over and just resolder some of these joints as well, just to make sure they're working okay. Alright, so the board is cleaned up as much as it's going to and as much as it needed. Just removing those white traces from outside the area here. Other side of the board is looking okay. Just one thing I did notice, in the connector that's not used, there is a little bit of debris in there, so I'm just going to give that a clean out as well. Okay, that's the unit put back together. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't find anything wrong with it or any obvious cause, but let's go and put it back in and see what happens. This is the holder that CCM sits in. It did have 2 of these V-grooved things on it, which locate in the front of that silver panel there. Idea is to drop down, but to get it out I did have to prise it out and the bottom one broke off. Hopefully it'll go back together. These are the connectors that go back into that box. From what I can see, they do all look intact and okay with no corrosion, but it is very difficult, got very limited access. Okay, just plug the unit back in again. Still exactly the same problems, so I'm giving up on this one. What I did discover is if I turn the selective locking off, then I can just lock it once, one press, unlock it all with another press, and it seems to work okay like that. So I think it's going to have to stay like that unless anyone can come up with anything. In the meantime, let's start trying to get this back together. I'm a little bit concerned about this panel, which goes in here. There was some force involved in taking it out, so we'll see how that goes back. For anyone else attempting this, inside that gap, just where the torchlight is now, I'm not sure how good it's coming through, that top black tab is what's on the black box. Slides through that steel panel. There is 2 of them originally, there's one lower down, but as I say, unfortunately that one came going off. I've just managed to slot that back in after slotting the CCU back into it, so that's fixed. Clutch pedal cable's back on. Let's see what we can do about this other panel. As I say, it did use a bit of force to get this out. There's only one screw in the top of it. Got some damage around the other fixings. So let's try putting it back and see what happens. It did go back together easy enough. We're all back together. I didn't get away with that panel. There is a massive gap on there. Looking at the construction of it, it's plastic welded. Tabs going through little holes and then sort of melted on the back. So that's as good as I'm going to get. It is secure, it's screwed at the bottom, it's screwed at the top onto the normal dash fittings. So, bit of a failure on this one. We didn't get anywhere by removing the CCM. It's a nightmare job to do. And the caddy's broken for it that goes back in. It's only got one fixing instead of two. It does seem solid enough, so I'm happy it's not going to fall down. So it looks like we're admitting defeat on this one. I have set the car so that selective locking isn't set. Lock button locks it, double locks. Unlock button just unlocks it fully with all the doors. That seems to be the easiest thing to do. I haven't got around the problem that I initially have, that's still there. The way that I'm doing it now, I shouldn't get any errors coming up on the lock. That CCM was an absolute nightmare to get out. I was pretty disappointed that I didn't find anything wrong in there that was causing it. Where the CCM's located above the clutch pedal, the wiring loom for it is virtually impossible to check without taking the dashboard out, so that isn't something that I'm going to be doing. So this one's a big fail. We're going to live with it. It's not the end of the world, but there is still a fault on it, which, as I say, for practical purposes, we're not going to be able to trace it.